Hello and welcome to Wordpath, the show about Oklahoma Indian languages and the people who are teaching and preserving them. My guest tonight is Chief Jerry Haney of the Seminole Nation. Welcome, Chief Haney.
Good to be here, thank you.
It's nice to have you with us. Can you start us off by teaching us a greeting in your language?
I guess one of the most frequently used is this real simple word. It says stungo, which means basically, how are you?
Okay.
Simple
Stungo.
words.
Okay.
It's one of the words that's probably used more often than anyone else, anything else rather.
Very good. Well, it doesn't sound too hard either. I like it when it's... Sometimes I ask people how to say hello and they give me a long string of things and I'm kind of discouraged, but I think I can handle that one. Stungo. Let's get a little bit of background on the language of the Seminoles. Now, I could call it the Seminole language, but it's basically the same as the language of the Creek Nation, isn't it?
It's called the Muscogee language. I think there's a basic language that several tribes use, and they call it the Muscogean language. And of course, since the Seminoles were moved here from Florida in the mid-1800s, they were put with the Creeks. So the Muscogee Creeks, as they're called now, that we picked up their language. But when the Seminoles were first moved here, there were other languages that they spoke. For instance, there was Hijiti was spoken at one time. So, but it's predominantly the Muscogee language, as we call it now, is spoken.
And wasn't there a language called Miccosukee, I believe?
Right. There's also a Miccosukee language. It's not spoken here anymore. They still speak that in Florida.
So basically, the national language today of Oklahoma Seminoles would be Muscogee?
Right. That's correct.
Okay, good. How many Seminoles are there in your tribe?
We have roughly 12,000 tribal members that are of by-blood Indians, as we call them. And then we have about 1,500 what we call the freedmen. Those are descendants of the slaves that were moved here back in the mid-1800s also.
And of all that number, do you have an idea about how many are actually fluent speakers of the Muscogee language?
I don't think there is any data to support any figures, but I would say that somewhere probably around 25% are that could speak that.
That's not too bad in a way. I mean, it sounds like the language is in better shape in your tribe than in some tribes, at least. About the freedmen that you mentioned, do they also speak Muscogee language? Some of them?
In earlier days, when the freedmen were really with close association with the Indians, yes, they did speak it. I don't know how many there are still alive that could speak that, but I think that is dying out within that area also. But in a few short years back, that I do remember seeing some that could speak it fluently.
That's interesting. I thought maybe before we go further, I visited out just south of Seminole last week when you had your annual celebration, Seminole Nation Days, and I put together a little tape of some of the things that I saw there, and it includes some Muscogee language on it. Why don't we take a look at that, and if you want to comment on anything as we watch it, please feel free.
Sure, I'll be glad to.
Although it be thou name, thou kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in the heaven.
Always start with some spiritual service such as this, and to give us the guidance so we can have a good time during our Seminole Nation Days. This group is from our Ministerial Alliance group, which comprises of 27 different churches within our jurisdiction, which is only one county, 27 Indian churches. Songs, while they are written, you'll very seldom ever see the Indians when they sing these church hymns to use a songbook. They sing from the heart.
Ajalak, Ibege Angelai, Momacho, Timobanabarat, Tishpoki goes, Margaret Changi, Emongado, Moment, Hayon, Brother Don, Timobanaga, Ahoja, Talakabati Dashos, Kumeo, Ijok. Our Heavenly Father, we thank you for this opportunity of bringing us together that we can share your word with one another.
Mundo si hayuman. Shimalone over no made. Also be a regat. Avatskina high leggy rollies market Fatsiskina Hagari Ruido. Moment of Hayu Yalagat to nomad mat in Nitarununga. Moment mine it over no made. Make go overnight wheelers bucket. Fatsiskina Hahoyari Ruido. Make go out in Medagos Wheelie Lunga. Moment of another no Mario. Minute Lunga.
Just before
State of the
Nation address to the Seminole people.
Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you the Principal Chief of the Seminole Nation of Oklahoma, Jerry Haney.
But what I want to do here, as on my portion of the program here, we've had our spiritual services, and the other area we are proud of is our veterans. We always honored our veterans, and at this time I want to, for our people to pay reverence to our veterans by honoring the honor guards that will be coming in and presenting the 21-gun salute.
Some of the tick cells and stuff still have a river cane flute. But this is what this is made of. That's that, some people call it that swamp cane. It has a different sound.
It's Lewis Johnson, I believe, is playing, isn't it?
Lewis is the curator of the Seminole Nation Museum, is very good at playing that flute.
Sure is.
Well, many years ago, Seminole Indians in Florida depended on the alligator as a source of food, one of their sources of food, and was eaten very widely. But then up in the
I guess we'll see a little alligator wrestling here.
Right. I had to put some of that in.
on up into the early 1900s, these Indian boys found out they could get a few dollars for selling the alligator alive. Now, all you young people, all you parents, please make sure that none of you small children run up to this alligator while he's untaped, like this little guy here. This alligator is not tame, he's not trained, he is a wild alligator, and he will bite you, as you can see. Ever seen a mouse trap? You reach in, you touch the lever, and the thing snaps shut. Well, that's basically how the alligator jaws work. You can stick anything you want in there, and if he doesn't see it or feel it, he doesn't know it's there.
Well, we do not have alligators here in Oklahoma. These alligators were brought to us by the Florida Seminoles for a demonstration, and so it's always a good, entertaining event for our people at this celebration.
Okay, now he throws his jaws way down on the ground, making sure that the dog is closed. Because if you happen to slip your finger in there, I can tell you from experience, it surely will ruin your weekend. All right, there's the open jaws. Those teeth make good jewelry, good tools, good weaponry.
That's a brave kid.
It's all yours.
And a little bit of a stickball game. Well, I hope that gives people a little bit of the flavor of what it's like to go to Seminole Nation Days. It's the first time I've been, and I certainly had a good time. I was glad I was able to hear a lot of the Muscogee language there. I like to kind of hear the language in its home context, you know, where the people are that are speaking it. But I noticed when I was looking at that tape today that there was quite a bit of English spoken and quite a bit of Muscogee, but I think all of the Muscogee that I heard that day was in the religious context, singing the hymns or giving a prayer, except for when you were introduced. That was the other time. Is that one of the main cultural connections with the language today?
I would say so, yes. Within our churches, most of the churches there still sing the hymn in the native tongue. The other area where it's spoken is on the ceremonial grounds. We have 2 grounds that are still active within our area. And of course, they being traditional ceremonial grounds, they speak that language and do everything in native ways. So yes, there's still quite a bit of that language still alive.
I'll bet if your tribe is like so many others, there probably are some people who can sing the hymns, although they don't really speak the language. At least they know the hymns.
That's true.
In your language. Is that the case?
That's true. I know for myself, I never really realized that I could not really start a song, but if somebody's singing it, I could always sing along with them. And I was embarrassed one day when they asked me to lead a song in church, and I was lost, and I realized I didn't really. I couldn't start one out, but if someone was singing it, I could sing right along with them. So there's a lot of people that are like that.
I think that's an important link, though, with the language, since so many people don't speak it in their everyday lives. At least they must have an ear for the language from singing the hymns, I'll bet. Let me ask you a little bit about your own personal experiences and background to get some insight into what it's been like for you as a Seminole man. You've spoken Muscogee all your life, haven't you?
Right. When in my era is coming up, when it came time to go to school, of course, I was raised up by my parents who were traditional and Indian-speaking people. That the only language I knew was the Seminole language, or the Muscogee language, as we call it. So when school started, I went to a public school, and of course, the teacher was speaking in English, and I was totally lost. I did not know what they were talking about. So I think that shortly after I started school, it might have been a week or 2 weeks, whatever it was, I was taken by the Bureau of Indian Affairs, social worker, and taken to a boarding school, Indian school in Sapulpa that was known as Yuchi Indian School. At that time, most of our Indian kids they spoke only their native tongue. And I think that the word that the Bureau used at the time was to kill the Indian and save the man. Yeah. It was basically to take the Indian culture out and to prepare you for the mainstream of society. Mm. So you had to speak English, and if you were caught speaking your native tongue, then you would get in trouble. And you may be put on details cleaning floors or something along that line. But I went to an Indian school where I stayed there for all the way up through 7th grade. Now, at that particular school, that school closed, and they took all the kids and shipped them to one school or another. I was sent to a school called Jones Academy, which is still there.
Mm-hmm. Where is that located?
It's located east of McAllister, near a town called Hartshorn, in Choctaw jurisdiction. Now, when we were taken there were a handful of us that spoke the Muscogee language, which are the Creeks and Seminoles. And Jones Academy was predominantly Choctaws and Chickasaws. And at the time, it was all a boys' school. So it was, we were all pretty rowdy, and if you you got into it with one kid, then others came in, and it was the tribes stuck together. So, needless to say, we sort of got our heads skint on a daily basis. So, it was after that year that when I came home for the summer, I told my dad that I did not want to go back to the Indian school because of that, and he says, well, you'll have to go to public school here. So that was the first time I was a big grown kid before I was ever really around any non-Indians or white people. And but since that time I've adjusted, and of course I ended up met my wife at that school. She's a non-Indian, but we've been together for over 40 years, and so that was the start of my branching out to outside of the Indian ways, I guess you could say.
Congratulations on your long marriage.
Thank you.
Many more years to come, I hope. I was asking you earlier today about the experience of raising children in this kind of linguistic situation. You had spoken the language all your life, but your wife didn't speak Muscogee.
No, it's rather difficult. My kids, of course, naturally, they, with my wife not being an Indian, we spoke English, and so while I use small words to my children, they understand, and I think they may understand more than they can let you know, but it's they don't speak it. And I think that's very true with even our Indian kids that are coming up now, that while English is the predominant language, if you're not around the Indian language, whatever it is, on a daily basis, then it's really difficult to try to speak that. A lot of our children that are around it can understand what you're saying, but they don't speak it. Yeah. If they respond to you, they will respond to you in English. So
there's just so much English around.
Right.
Well, that's why I think it's so important to get the language taught in some kind of school setting. Probably for most families, that would be helpful. Would you like to tell us a little bit about the book you brought?
Yes, this book was developed by a committee that we set up in Seminole Nation. It's called a Language Curriculum Committee, which set this book up, and hopefully we'll put it into some of our elementary classes. And it's very basic, as you can see. The words can be used.
See if I can help you hold it. Yeah, it has these very large pages. I suppose this is probably for the teacher to hold up, or maybe they're designed to be torn out. I'm not sure which. What's this word here? Can you?
That is the greeting again here. Where, what I told you a while ago when I came in, I said stungo. That was one way, the way that most people would say it. But you can also say it as istungo.
A little bit longer version.
Right. So
So there's several, I noticed before when I was looking at this, there are several pages like that, and then there are other types of pages with games and exercises. And in the back there's some bingo games
Right.
where you have to cover the correct word as it's written. I
Right.
guess probably the teacher will say a word or hold up an item or something.
There's, I think
looks very
those are counting.
These are, yeah, oh, addition in Seminole. Okay.
Right.
So I'm not sure you want to take us through one of these problems. It's number one. What are we
Let's
saying
say
here?
Hamgen plus Hokkolin. That's 1 plus 2. Of course, here then it's Tuchinen. It equals 3. Tuchinen plus Austin Kolabagan. So that's 7.
Okay. So it looks like a very carefully worked out book, and really there's some nice artwork in it also that's labeled with the Muscogee word at the bottom.
Right.
This is the word for, what is this the word for here?
What's it? That's grandma.
Oh, grandma. Okay, and there's a picture of a grandma. It's very nice, I think. I noticed that apparently they have in mind for the curriculum using a writing system for the Muscogee language, not just learning it orally.
That's true.
Is there an officially adopted tribal alphabet, or what's the situation?
There
with
is
that?
a alphabet that is used by the Muscogee language where if you can identify, let's say for instance, it's like Mado means thank you. And if you spell it in Muscogee language, it would be spelled M-V-T-O. So the V has the pronunciation of Mado. And it's pretty simple to catch on. I guess it is if you're an Indian, but I think that if you know
I
the
believe they have
alphabet, you
an
can read
explanation
that.
here, don't they? I think they present the alphabet at the front, if I remember right. Yeah, they have a listing of the different letters at the front. So everybody's pretty much agreed that this is the way that you would spell the Muscogee language.
Right.
That's good. You're ahead of the game there. And I know in some tribes there's a disagreement as to which system should be used or whatever. So it looks like you're getting things standardized. This is developed by your curriculum development committee, is that?
And these books plus a tape are for sale for, I think it was $30. And they have the...
Actually, if you folks in the booth wouldn't mind, I think we have an address there that you could put on the screen to get more information about this book and the tapes that go with it as well, right?
That's true.
In fact, I have the material you gave me here. Let me see what the price is. It says you can buy the book and tape at a cost of only $35 or the tape alone for $8. And there's the address and the phone number. You can call Jane McGessie. McGeesey, sorry, at in the 405 area at 257-5997, or write to the Language Curriculum Development Committee at Post Office Box 35, Wewoka, Oklahoma 74884, and you can get you some Muscogee language materials. That looks really good. Let's see, where else do we have, what else is going on in the Seminole Nation these days?
Well, I'd like to speak for our Seminole Nation Days. If we want all of the people to participate that can come out and visit. And that always happens on the weekend following Labor Day. So
that makes
we'll have
it
it
easy to
again next
remember.
September, and we
Good.
invite everybody to come out for that.
Good. I'd like to go there again sometime. One of the things I noticed in the tape that I wanted to ask you about was at the beginning when I think it was William Narcomi was saying the Lord's Prayer. We showed a little bit of that, and the princess, what was her name, Misty?
The princess was Misty Wynn is her
Misty
name.
Wynn.
She was just...
This signing that she was doing, is that something that's a traditional Seminole activity?
No, that's not traditional for the Seminoles. It's picked up by some of probably the Plains Indians that use that.
So that was probably what some people call Plains Sign Language
Right.
that she was demonstrating there.
That's true.
And that's something that I guess other tribes have been picking that up more.
Right.
Of course, that used to be the lingua franca in the old days when the different tribes couldn't understand each other. They could use that between them. So it was very useful in its day. I think it's a very beautiful, artistic thing to see nowadays,
Sure.
too. What else shall we talk about? We were talking a little bit earlier about stories. I kind of suggested to you that if you wanted to, you might tell a story on the show. I don't know if you want to really tell one, but it was interesting what you were telling me about how things kind of lose in the translation sometimes.
Yes, that's true. You know, if you ever see a group of Indians together that are speaking their native language there, that you'll see that they're always laughing and having a good time. But now, in a little story or a joke that the Indian may tell in his native language, if you translate that into English, it'll lose all its effectiveness, and it's really not funny when you say it in English. So a lot of times I'll try to, if we're laughing at something, somebody that doesn't know what we're laughing at, and I try to interpret it for them, it will not be funny as this one. But it's the Indian language is a language that you can use. It just it's totally different than English. You say everything backwards too. So
well, I think just as language and culture are so closely related, humor comes in on that too. That sometimes humor doesn't translate so well, and a lot of the stories that you were talking about, I think, were humorous stories, and probably more humorous in Muscogee than in English. Well, there's one very good reason for trying to save native languages, because if the language is lost, then you only have these stories in translation, and you really have lost something culturally as well, I think.
That's true.
Well, I think we're just about out of time. I'd like to say, Mado, Chief Haney, we really would like to thank you for driving all this way and coming to visit with us on the show. We've really found it very educational, and it's a great honor to have had you.
It's good to be here. I'm glad I could be a part of it.
Thank you very much. Before we close out the show, if the booth could put up that other title that we had. On our last show, I had Gus Palmer Jr. as a guest, and we were talking about the Kiowa Black Leggings ceremony, which is coming up soon, and we didn't have the exact date. But I got that information during the week. The Kiowa Black Leggings ceremonial will be held October 12th to 13th at the Indian City Dance Ground in Anadarko. And if you'd like more information about that, the number in the 405 area again is 247-6651. So everybody go out to Kiowa Black Leggings, and you'll hear some quite a bit of Kiowa language there. So thanks for joining us tonight, and we'll see you next time on Wordpath.
Na Haney yo Haney, na Haney yo Haney, ana magwana kita, wa pene manaoni kita. Na Haney yo Haney, na Haney yo Haney, ana magwana kita, wa pene manaoni kita. Na Haney yo Haney, na Haney yo Haney, ana magwana kita, wa pene manaoni kita. Na Haney yo Haney, na Haney yo Haney, ana magwana kita, wa pene manaoni kita. Na Haney yo Haney, na Haney yo Haney, ana magwana kita, wa pene manaoni kita.